TV corner.
Hey guys, we're back with another episode of Lovecraft Country. This week we're peeling back the layers with episode 5 titled Strange Case. With me I have Alex returning.
Hello.
Yeah, so after Ruby spends the night with William, she wakes up transfigured into the body of a white woman. And to note, not just any random white woman, it's the same woman who was a dog trainer from Artem, who we know died. So it appears to be that the person you're going to transform into has to have died already. But we'll touch back on that later. The transformation itself, it's a gruesome, oh my god. The transformation itself is a grotesque process, but Ruby admittedly enjoys the privileges that being a white woman affords her, and soon she's confidently walking the streets as Hilary Davenport. Aside from free ice cream and public acts of courtesy, Ruby also uses her white facade to instantly land a job as an assistant manager at Marshall Fields, even though she used the same resume as before. And to note, she wasn't just hired, she was made assistant manager immediately. Well, speaking of transformations, Atticus's father, Montrose, is kicked out of the house when Atticus realizes that he murdered the siren and destroyed the pages from the Book of Adam. He then runs into the arm of his secret lover, Sammy, who coaxes him out of the closet. It's nice to see Montrose become empowered and embrace his sexuality. And speaking of empowerment, I'm really hitting these segues today.
Crushing it.
Speaking of empowerment, Ruby learns that the only reason Tamara got her job was because their boss wanted to take advantage of her. When he tries to unsuccessfully force himself on Tamara, he immediately calls her a racial slur and then later tells Hilary that he wants to let her go. Unwilling to let this misdeed go unpunished, Ruby uses her Hilary disguise to seduce her boss and then brutally sodomizes him as she returns to her original form. In her own words, she wanted to make sure he knew a black woman had done this to him. Though I feel like he might have just been confused, but who knows? But in the most obvious twist of the century, we discover that Christina Braithwaite is in fact William. Alex, you called that out last week. And now that the cat's out of the bag, or the she is out of the he, what do we think this will mean for Ruby and William's arrangement?
Tamara is like a saleswoman on the floor at Marshall Fields, in case people don't remember from a couple of weeks ago.
Oh yeah. Well, let's I guess for let's just jump right into sort of like Ruby's storyline, 'cause this is a very Ruby centric episode. We know last week that she was really upset because she wanted that Marshall Fields job, and Tamara got it before her. And we see that, the grass isn't always greener in this case.
Oh, it's just I was gonna say it's weird because I don't exactly know like what Ruby expects the like horrible people that work there to be like, but like all the horrible white people. She tries to like take them out to the south side to hang out, and she keeps like criticizing Tamara. It seemed like Ruby was pretty world weary and wise, and I was just sort of surprised that she was surprised that these people were horrible people, except for Tamara.
Yeah, yeah. I think getting into episode 5 of this show, I think that I don't want to say that it's not important to like really shed the light on like how entrenched racism is within like the daily lives of all these people. But to your point, like Ruby acting surprised that like her fellow white coworkers were like racist and terrible to Tamara. Like, I don't know why she, to your point, like felt surprised. It seemed like that'd be a pretty obvious way for them to feel. The surprising thing would have been like if they did anything else.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, what do you think about overall the entire transformation itself and like what that says about like what the black versus white experience is? Because I really like the way they showed it at the beginning when Ruby first wakes up and realizes she's like in this new skin, sort of like she's running around the south side as like the sort of deranged white woman, but generally all these people are like concerned for her, and then the cops immediately show up to defend her even when she's like not even in trouble or, in need of help.
Yeah, I thought that was an interesting choice. I thought it was the physical transformation was really well done. It's super gross. They have her sort of shed her skin and bone. It looks like sort of like a moth or a butterfly or something.
Yeah.
So like she sort of like comes out of like a larval state every time. Um, but yeah, instead of just like literally just shedding skin, it's like a gross, uncomfortable, gory process. So that was kind of well done. It looks like it was mostly digital, and then they have some like bloody viscera post transformation that like either actress sort of throws off of her. But yeah, it was interesting. And then of course they bring it back at the end with that transformation from William into Christina.
I really enjoyed the body horror in this episode. Very obviously like American Werewolf in London, which really like broke the mold at the time. What I do love the transformation. It reminds me also of like the Polyjuice potion in Harry Potter, like where it's like sort of on a time limit. But the one thing I feel the only thing I will say is that it's just kind of impractical to happen every time. Just like for the sake of like, I mean, I guess this is magic and those are the rules, but I just feel like from a standpoint of this being a thing you wanted to do regularly and get away with it, it like how is Christina slash William like doing this on a regular basis, like seemingly twice a day, and where's the blood going? Where's all the mess? So that's the only thing that kind of bothered me about this, just like the practicality of the whole situation. But I do agree, it looked super sick, and I loved when Hillary first gets that job, and she goes into the elevator as she's like rushing out because she's transforming, and like that was like a really cool um shot of that happening. Also, her transforming in the alley at the Chicago bar.
Yeah, that was cool. And then the thing that so she like at one point she throws away the potion or whatever that helps her transform, but then she just has more of it at William's house. So
Yeah, I mean, were you surprised that? I mean, obviously the show's got a show, but were you surprised that like Ruby decided to like keep transforming into Hillary?
I was yeah I kind of like let me look up the actress's name. I'm gonna sorry if I butcher the pronunciation to this actress if she would ever listen to this, but Wunmi Mosaku, who plays Ruby in her normal skin, like I just thought like I just like her and I just wanted to see more of her, so I was kind of annoyed when she goes away. Um, but yeah, like the Hillary Davenport thing is it's like a serious version, a serious sci-fi, not the serious fantastic horror version of that Eddie Murphy sketch when Eddie Murphy goes undercover as a white guy for Saturday Night Live.
Or white chicks?
Or yeah, or White Chicks. I've never seen White Chicks, but I do want to.
What? I mean, I think at this point it's part of the like the Criterion collection.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I really wanted to see more of Ruby because I feel like overall we don't get a lot of her, and then even in her own episode, like we don't get that much of her. I mean, yeah, I wonder if we're gonna see more of her transforming in the future. And what do you think this now that we know, like, why William slash Christina needed her in the first place to get revenge on like the sheriff? But do you think that like Ruby's gonna stay in cahoots with them? I mean, especially because like she has to know that like Atticus and Letty are like very against Christina.
Yeah, it's a little confusing to me. Like I don't understand. I feel like it didn't have to be Ruby, but it is weird it's Ruby because Ruby has she's Letty's half sister and Letty is girlfriend
Oh,
of
that's a great point. Like in
Christina's
all
cousin.
honesty, like I thought Christina was slash William Stina, Christilium. Trying to like figure out like combine these things. Yeah, well, like I thought that she was gonna ask for something house related, but the fact that she asked for that seemed like she could have couldn't she have had any black woman just drop that rock into his office? She could just paid literally anyone else to do it.
Right, and if she's so magical that she can like make people transform into different people, couldn't she just have done that with someone else? Like she couldn't, or couldn't she turn herself into like a maid, catering this event of the cops?
That is a great point. I mean, you could say like maybe like Christina has some kind of like spell where she can't enter there, like because she never goes inside. So I figured that was like sort of like what stopped her.
William William slash Christina enlists Ruby to go into this secret club of Chicago cops to plant like a threatening symbol, sort of letting the chief of police who thinks that he killed William, to let him know that in fact William's not quite dead.
Mm-hmm. Not quite. Yes. Oh wait, we also didn't touch on the fact of like what Ruby found in the sheriff's closet.
Right, just like a guy that's bleeding out, strung up, you know, um, and unclear exactly what the point of that was or like what they're doing with him. I guess they're
Well,
murdering him and torturing him, but like to what end? Who knows?
yeah, I mean, the thing that I felt like could be what's happening is if you see the sheriff takes off his shirt, and kind of reveals that he appears to be sort of like Frankenstein together, like maybe he's using other people's body parts and maybe that man is like being harvested.
Yeah, he has like someone's chest sewn onto his chest.
Yeah, so I think we're probably gonna come back into like what, why the sheriff has people in that closet. He had someone else in there when Christina was visiting him a week ago. So yeah, there was someone like moaning in the closet. So that was like, like a little like, there's something going on here moment. And then this week we obviously see that someone was inside. So I'm thinking next week we'll get some payoff, and I think the connection will be between him and Hiram, who is obviously experimenting on on humans, and tying that into his relationship with him.
Hiram, the expunged ghost from a
Yes.
couple episodes ago.
Yes, exactly. The ghost busted ghost.
Got it.
Yeah. So I mean, to that point, I also was. Will say returning to Ruby turning into Hillary. When she sees that her boss actually only hired Tamara because he was like attracted to her and wanted to like make a move on her, and he was promptly rejected, she saw like the true like kind of like monster that her boss was and decided to take revenge. And I felt like, one, I thought it was kind of like, if you could, if all right, in your mind this time, if you're transforming into a white person who has all these privileges, why is the first thing you want to do work retail?
Yeah, I was
We
wondering
seem
about
pretty
that
small
too.
here.
Yeah, but I guess they address that because William says like, "What do you really?" Or Christina says, "What do you really want to be?" In the scene immediately before she quits and beats up the boss. So maybe it's just like Ruby's thinking about her own aspirations, sort of in a more micro way, and then Christina sort of tries to prompt her to think differently about them, and maybe we're gonna see what that looks like in the next episode. I guess I was a little confused by that too, though, because I don't know. It seemed like
Well, yeah, I think to that point, maybe that planted a seed. Maybe like Ruby's gonna turn into like some sort of like black white superhero, a vigilante. That's sort of the role she took on. So maybe she's gonna use that white skin privilege to like right some other, racist wrongs. I what did Speaking of which, what did you think about her, like what she did to the boss?
it's pretty brutal. But I mean, I guess the show's pretty violent, so
I mean, two wrongs don't make a right, and I feel like yeah, it was just pretty brutal. Like maybe too brutal, and like honestly, I felt like maybe a little tasteless, especially with like like so her what she does is she seduces her boss as Hillary, then attacks him and begins to transform back into Ruby. She then assaults him with her high heel shoe. And then after that, she walks away in these like bloody shoes. It was like very like the Cardi B playing, like all of this was just like, again, too on the nose and just like a little too melodramatic. I don't know. Like I just wish there had been like a less brutal revenge done that could be as effective.
yeah. I'm trying to like be more open to this show in general and just I still don't exactly know where they're taking us with everything because the episodes change the stakes from week to week. So I don't know. Like it seemed like a little out of place with what they had shown us before. Like last week was the Indiana Jones adventure that was like a little violent.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's that's true. Yeah, they definitely, to your point, like before it's been violent, but like kind of like in the Indiana Jones, like more campy violence. And this was definitely more like almost Saw level in some regards, or like an Eli Roth type situation. Um, so yeah, that was a little unexpected, like tonally. I mean, and also speaking of unexpected, Montrose, hanging out with drag queens and embracing his more flamboyant side. I will say this also. I love Frank Ocean, but the scene where Montrose and Sammy hook up, I feel like was again graphic in a weird way.
Yeah, it wasn't like I don't know if it was, I don't know. I thought it was gonna try to be like sort of more like sexy and intimate, but it was like yeah, like kind of intense.
And I feel like it is a little bit weird to also go from like their sex scene, I think almost right away into like Ruby assaulting her boss. So that was like a weird, like, it, I I don't know how to how to really say this, but it didn't sit right with me.
Yeah, it was weird. I mean, then also like you have Letty hooking up with Atticus again, and it's like much like it's definitely like sexy and like romantic. So it's weird that they like don't do that again with Montrose's hookup with Sammy.
Oh yeah, and I'm sorry. As a correction to myself, they actually intercut Montrose and Sammy hooking up with Letty and Atticus hooking up. And yeah, I think the juxtaposition is important because like if you think about like what's a normalized sexual interaction, it's like Letty and Atticus are sort of like that, like more traditional expression versus like Sammy and Montrose who sort of like have, well, don't have to be, but Montrose feels like he has to be more restricted in his love. Like they don't even take their clothes off. So I think it was to show that like that both father and son are being comforted by their own partners, but in very different ways.
Yeah, but then I'm also wondering with Montrose, like he murdered kind of a sympathetic character who'd been in prison for I guess centuries in the last episode, and then he
Mm-hmm.
destroyed these pages um, of Titus's book. And Atticus is upset with him about it, and we don't really understand his motivations exactly for doing so. Atticus speculates that it's to protect the family and to try to keep them from getting to the wrong hands, but um, it's a pretty hardcore step to take.
Yeah. And to that point too, it's like weird for us to go from like, okay, we're really upset with Montrose to like sort of like simultaneously rooting for his like coming out party without resolving like like you said, like his motives for doing it. I mean, at this point I'd almost chalk it up to like his own internalized homophobia, maybe, but that also doesn't seem to make any sense in the grand scheme of like, again, like you said, like the stakes. Like what are the stakes of this book? Because I feel like he did it in a way that makes it seem like there's something bigger than all this that we don't understand. But then his, just the way it happened and like the pacing of it makes it feel like are we never going to talk about this again?
Right? Yeah, it's weird.
I don't know. Yeah. So I feel like, again, in this episode, I don't know if things really moved forward with the plot, actually. Like stuff happened, but really nothing really happened that actually affected anything moving forward.
Yeah, I don't know because it's tough because like again it's I don't know what the exact focus is right overall. So there's plenty of movement, especially with Ruby's storyline, and then with I guess the relationship of Atticus and Letty. But not like in terms of the overall narrative, it doesn't seem like there's a ton. But at the end, we get that little teaser. Atticus figures something out when looking over pictures of the missing pages of Titus's book, and he calls his ex-girlfriend
Mm-hmm.
in Korea, and so that and then she seems to have
Yeah.
warned him
Yeah.
about it, and then that's it. That's the main takeaway. That's about this overarching story.
I just want to say a fun fact on the actress who plays Jia, who we will see in next week's episode, Jamie Chung, was actually in Real World San Diego
Oh, really?
when I was in middle school. Yeah, so I just love shouting that out.
Wow.
She's also in the Dragon Ball Z movie, but we don't talk about that.
Oh, she was.
Yeah. But going back to that, to your point, um, and into next week, it looks like we're going to do a Korea flashback. So we're actually not going to resolve anything from this week's episode next week. So it's going to be like 2 weeks before we ever get any more movement in our current storyline.
Yeah, it's weird because it's like there's some episodes have like that sense of urgency about the main storyline, and then it pauses for 2 weeks. So I don't know. I guess I'm just again trying to be more receptive to where they're taking us, being more ambiguous and enjoying episode by episode. But it is frustrating. So I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I again like and with this show, like I'm not trying to take it like intensely serious, serious. It's this isn't like I almost said Game of Thrones, but Game of Thrones isn't even like Game of Thrones. But it isn't, like as far as like it being like an intense narrative or anything like that. It just I feel like it's supposed to be more like bubblegum level consumable. So, but I do wish it had more direction overall.
Yeah, and again, like maybe this is part of like a broader design that we know, and like it'll all become clear later.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, these divergences are a bit in the moment frustrating because you want to see the bigger picture more, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I agree.
Well, any predictions before we?
At the end of your wrap up, you asked, what do we think the information that Christina is William will mean for the relationship of Ruby and William and their arrangement, and I have no idea at all. Because we just been moved. The story keeps moving around, so I don't know. I don't know if it's important that Ruby is Letty's half sister and thus has these close ties to Atticus, who's Christina's cousin. With whom she wants to collaborate in search of these pages, or if it's just happenstance, or and if there's like some grander design for the arrangement she has in mind, and
Mm-hmm.
like giving her these transformational powers, or like what's going on. So I don't know. I have no idea.
Yeah, I mean, I like a part of me would not be surprised if Ruby returns to the house and like never talked about it, like anything that just happened, or if she does continue to sort of like stay with Christina slash William to further, figure out how she can use magic to better her own life. What I wonder is like, do you think that William and Ruby will continue to like be a thing?
I don't know, and I also don't know why it is a thing. Like, what does it matter if she's these two people? Like, ultimately, and is it like you were saying? Like, William is a guy that was murdered, and that's how Christina was able to sort of take his body and incorporate it into her transformations, or were they always the same person? And like, yeah, I don't know. And then like, what is her plan? And like, does she actually like Ruby, or is she using Ruby to get to Letty, to get to Atticus, or
It it almost the thing that makes it like, I mean, we don't know Christina's master plan, but yeah, again, it seems like it'd be obvious for her to use Ruby to get to Atticus and Letty right away, but maybe there's like a few stages to the plan that needs to happen first. What I will we I mean, we do know that like in this episode we did not touch on this yet, but the fact is like the way it's difficult to be both a woman and a person of color it's sort of like, that double disadvantaged. So it's obvious that, the same way that Ruby enjoys the privilege of, or enjoys, or not really enjoys, but utilizes the privilege of being a white woman, and Christina does the same thing while she is the form of William to utilize the fact that he's a man. So I think that's ultimately why she's transforming into him. It serves nothing else but the fact that as a man you can move around a lot more easily in society. Especially, we know the Sons of Adam, that you can't be a woman and be a part of the gang. So I think that's why Christina has been leaning into William so hard. The thing I find interesting is that why she doesn't just turn to him full time.
I don't understand. And who's who? Is she the core personality or is it William? It seems like it's her because she's presented as the daughter of the Sons of Adam guy in a couple episodes ago. So
I would love the twist that William is actually Christina being William. But that's not possible because we just saw her transform. I mean, we assume she's transforming back, but she could have been transforming into Christina. Who knows?
Right, exactly, yeah. Who knows? Hopefully all will be revealed.
Thank you for jumping on this week's Film Court TV Corner podcast, and we'll catch you guys next time.
TV Corner.